Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Elementary. So in this episode, we deal with a victim named George who dies during a war reenactment. I like that little bit at the beginning. I thought it was kind of neat for the case. It's kind of like the three main people kind of giving the person who did it was like this or that, kind of giving conflicting information all at the same time. I don't know. I just think it's kind of a neat thing to a case and stuff like that, because obviously it's like, so many people were on the battlefield, but it's like, not everyone saw everything. It's just like, they're just conflicting reports just for different reasons and stuff like that. I love because it's like, it didn't just stop with a murder. It ended up turning out like, George got his whole place was burned down, and then it's all about these signatures, which is a very fascinating thing about some dude named Button Quinset, which is interesting because I'm not that familiar with history and stuff like that. But apparently he's one of the people that signed the Declaration of Independence. In the grand scheme of things, it's kind of funny. There's like a crap ton of people that signed that, but not many people know their names off the top of their head. It's like, some of the top tier people, John Hancock, Ben Franklin, George Washington himself. I'm sure there's other people that are probably well known, but those are top people that you typically know. But it's like, this guy was special because there's actually not that many documents around with his signature on it and stuff like that. So the fact is, a lot of people don't know about it, makes his whole situation rare, and George had signatures by him. And it's like, so that's what the case was about. There's that dude, that Chambers dude, who is like super, it seems like he's super rich and everything. He was super enjoying it. He's like, I'm potentially a suspect and stuff like that. And you can tell Sherlock kind of didn't like him, but he's very eccentric because he's almost like, I enjoy the spotlight being a killer and stuff like that. The moment that stuff came up, I was like, we're going to see him again. He's not the killer, but he's going to pop up later. I don't know. They gave him a little too much personality to make me feel like, he seems like he's going to be a character that they cross paths with later on. Because sometimes it happens in the show where it's kind of like certain people you meet during one case end up popping up either just because him and Sherlock end up crossing paths later on in a different case. Maybe he asks for their help, or maybe he just becomes an acquaintance of Sherlock after this whole circumstance. But especially just the whole him being such a big person. I never actually found out what he did. I don't remember them express. Maybe they said what he did, but I don't remember what he does for business. Obviously, he's really big into history and stuff like that. Hence why he was like, I'd never destroy those signatures because they're a piece of history. They tell a story, and just destroying them would just be terrible, So I don't know. I expect to see more of him, but maybe not. Maybe it's just legitimately a one-off character. It just seems interesting. They give him a little too much personality for him to just be a one-off character, but we'll see. It was interesting because it turns out the killer behind it all was Chris. Interesting. I'm pretty sure that was Mike Doyle, which thing I know him best from is I don't know if he was a medical examiner. He was one of the forensic dudes in Law and Order SVU for quite a while. So kind of one of the things I know him best from. But other than that, it seems like I love that whole he's like, search your house, if you search my house if you want to, you won't find any of it. It's like, we'll see about that. Hard cut to Sherlock being like, don't you hate it when the killer is right? The worst thing is just when the killer's right. Something like that I thought was kind of neat. But it turns out that basically the whole point was about the documents themselves, not necessarily just the signatures. Basically, it was like a whole land deal back in the day. You fight for us, you get there's promises of some of this land will be yours. And basically, he wants some land. He called him a lawsuit. Basically, the main point was to destroy these because he was trying to get them from George, but George wouldn't budge on the price or anything for him. So hence why he killed George and all that. So kind of interesting development. Like I said, it's kind of, it kind of fits the episode, the whole learning about history and stuff like that. Hence out probably one of my favorite parts to the case though is when they went to that dude Mason. He's like, hey, Sherlock, and Mason is almost like, you don't recognize me. It's like, no, I remember you. And basically he references them working on a case 6 years ago, which begs the question, is he someone that if we actually go, I always wonder about stuff like that. It's like, we've met before. It's like, is it one of those things where it's if you actually go back to because they say it's 6 years ago, so basically back in season 1, because it was when he knew Joan too. It's it was around that time. He was he's like, that was one of those cases where I was kind of avoiding you and stuff like that. We weren't working together. She was his sober companion at the time and everything. And he's like, I'll try to do whatever I could to avoid you. So I'm curious, if we go back, is he one of those respective that particular detective? I love it because he's a little pissed off because he's like, you and me, we did good together. It's you're a little, you weren't much of a big name as you are now, but it's kind of we did great. I was thinking we do great together. And then what do? You go off and start working with Detective Bell, and you have Sherlock being like, well, I didn't make Bell famous or anything like that. Bell got where he is right now because he is just a great detective. He's like, I'm not. It's a little pissy because he's like, yo, you and me were supposed to be a team. I should be where Bell is right now. And that's so funny to me that's a thing. I just thought that was it's kind of almost petty. Because his career is not where it was supposed to be, because he feels like the reason why Bell's career is the way it is because of Sherlock, which is like, yeah, Sherlock helped on cases here and there, but Bell's done plenty of stuff without Sherlock too. Like, obviously we always see the stuff he does with Sherlock, but let's not forget there's probably plenty of cases that they handle on their own that they don't need Sherlock for. So, Sherlock usually only takes cases that really interest him anyway. And that's kind of, well, that used to be his thing. I think it's hard to say whether that's 100% true now anymore, because because of the nature of the show, it's hard to say whether the cases they take are cases he finds interesting, or whether it's just kind of like the Captain Craigson's like, hey, I need your help on this. Could you come in? It's like, sure, because it's like, we're friends, we're family, like, I'll help out, so I don't know. But I even love it. He tried to be like, oh, so I'll help you out this thing if you help me out this case. And Sherlock looks at the picture and is like, yeah, it's this, and that. There was actually no break-in. The lady just got confused during the whole thing, and she actually put the club inside it with the umbrella. He's like, oh, literally solved it in like 20 seconds, and it's just kind of like, fine, I'll do what you want me to do. It's like, yeah, you thought you got him. Yeah, you're going to help me. Oh, it was literally nothing. It was literally nothing. It's not even like a hard crime, because you would think he was probably like, oh, so you're helping me out and everything. It's like, yeah, put my name on a block. I start working my way. Oh, you just solved it. It actually turned out to be nothing. Okay, so just kind of, I guess he was expecting something a little more exciting, and the fact of the matter is he could really kind of benefit from like Sherlock's case. Maybe if he had picked a different case, maybe Sherlock could have helped him out. I don't know. It's just kind of, like I said, it's just an interesting aspect to the episode. But another interesting thing about this kind of continuing Sherlock's situation is the whole situation about his doctor medicating him. And now that's something I've never even thought about. Like, obviously, like, different people are very kind of about medication. Just people are the way they are about medication. Some people, I think they kind of share a similar thing to Sherlock. They're afraid of like taking too much because they're afraid they might get addicted to it. Because it really pops up in Sherlock's condition, because his situation, because it's like, well, because he was an addict. Still is. You never stop being one. You just try to fight that addiction every day. And he's scared that the more medication he takes, the more likely he'll be able to, like, the doctor's like, no one's ever been very addicted to it, but it's like, well, that doesn't change the fact is I am very he has a very addictive personality, so he's afraid that if he starts taking this, that eventually he'll kind of become codependent on it and everything like that. And also because it just ends up messing up everything, because there's more medication. His sleep cycle is kind of messed up. He's actually, like, because it's, like I said, it's so interesting, because like prior to this, like, that was Sherlock's thing. It's like he never slept a lot. He did what was necessary, needed the rest for his brain, sure, but he'd always be on top of things. But it's like, nope, he ended up sleeping in. Like, it was actually Joan that kind of got the head start on everything. She's like, I was literally making a whole bunch of noise and you weren't waking up either. So it's like, wow, it's such, and he's kind of being up at odd hours working on stuff with the cases and stuff like that. So it's kind of throwing him kind of out of whack. It's kind of interesting because he goes to Michael for help, his new friend, like Desmond Harrington. Obviously, I'll dive into that more. But it's actually kind of interesting because he actually gave Sherlock some good perspective on it, because it's like, well, to be fair, like, kind of being like, you're so worried about this whole situation, but it's like you have your system in place. You have all these people around you, your friends that care. Like, obviously you have Watson, for example. It's like this partner of yours, like, she's been there with you throughout the whole thing, right? Well, the fact of the matter is your system works. Your system's already existed before all this. Like, the last thing you want to do is, while your brain is in the state that is in, try and changing up your system, because that's just going to throw you off. And it's just so interesting he gave him that perspective. But even like Sherlock's doctor is kind of like, you literally have two choices. You can keep up with the medication, kind of like, basically I can pull back the medication, we can find alternatives so you can get by. You'll still be kind of suffering some of the stuff, but you'll be getting by enough so you can continue doing your job. Or you take a long absence from work, and then that will allow you to kind of, because it's like, that's the only choices. But for Sherlock, it's like, what do I do? If I continue with the medication, it's just going to interfere with my work, because I won't be able to do it. I won't be at the top of my game. I'll oversleep. I won't be able to focus as much, because his whole conditioning is getting worse, because it's harder for him to sleep and focus without the medication. But like, he's scared of going too long without work, because his work is what keeps him focused, and also keeps him away from going down that route of his addiction. So it's like I said, it's the whole situation you brought up in the premiere of just kind of like this endless loop of just kind of everything's tied together. It's like, he's afraid because he's afraid the moment he drops the ball on one angle, it's all going to fall apart. He's going to fall apart. And that's what he's scared about. But the thing is, the doctor, and it's something Michael, you got to give him credit for, was kind of like, hey, it always feels weird saying Michael, considering that's my name and everything. So it kind of messes with me, kind of takes me off. Catch me off guard. I don't know why. Like it just bothers me. Nevertheless, it's not like I have a uncommon name. I have like one of the probably most common names ever. Nevertheless, but it's a situation of like your system's in play. Like they've got your back no matter what, so you don't have to worry about it as much. So ultimately, it did seem like Sherlock potentially was going to take that time off, because even Joe was like, if you need to, like, we can just at least we can kind of go half and half, where it's like, hey, like, we'll just pull back on how often we do cases. It's not like you need to like do cases like every week. We can do kind of like, like we have to do multiple cases a week. We can do like once a week or something like that, like give you some space in between. So it's like I said, for Sherlock, it is quite the conundrum to be in. Circumstances I'm sure Sherlock never would have thought he'd ever find himself in. So it's like these are circumstances that could affect anyone, but I feel like these are particularly negative against Sherlock, because even like it's like, oh, what about some of your stuff for your pastime? But even Sherlock's like, because of the activities he was really into, like the stick fighting and boxing, not very good with the condition that he has to, so he can't really do them. So they're a big no on the list. So which is understandable, because they don't want to take any chances of stuff that could potentially lead to him getting a bigger blow and making his PCS even worse. So. But what's really fascinating to me is the Michael situation about, like, he came to Sherlock and he's like, well, I thought I could help you out with something. He's like, oh yeah, there's this girl I knew from stuff. And it's like, yeah, she's actually been missing. And it's the girl he killed. Because we saw him looking at the picture on his computer when Sherlock went to meet up with him. And it's like, wait, okay, so you're just naturally a killer and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, you like Sherlock. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because you know who he is and everything that he represents. And it's like, oh, you want a challenge. Like it's a cat and mouse thing. It's like, oh, I want the greatest detective to try and catch me. So you're giving him clues because are you trying to get him clues to track you down? Or are you legitimately trying to help him because you want him to be in the best frame of mind when he goes up against you? Is that what this is? Or is it you're looking for the ultimate prey and you want him to be your target, but you need him to have a better mind? So you're giving him clues. Because it's like all that's going to do is lead back to you potentially. And there's a whole company thing that he works for. I'm blanking. Like, did he ever explain exactly what the hell he does at his job? I mean, it looks like one of those it's like a big business company type of job, but it's like also does like the serial killer thing on the side. Killer thing, at the very least, we don't know how he talked about. The fact is that Sherlock got him inspired to do his job again. But I in this premiere, thought that was kind of like, oh, the whole killer thing. But it's like, no, it might legitimately have been his job. And now this killing thing might have been a side thing. Or maybe it was always the thing that this fake persona job he has is like the front that he created to cover up the whole aspect of it. Like, I wonder, I kind of get the feeling like this wasn't his first murder, just the way he was exploding about it didn't seem like it. But it's just so interesting that, cause for one, like I said, it's like, it's a case we've never had before. Like, Sherlock's going up against serial killers before, but it's never been an overarching story like this. So it's just an interesting perspective. And it's also interesting because it's like we're also getting the killer's perspective of the story, which is so fascinating. And it seems, like I said, it's just kind of that cat and mouse thing. It seems like he wants Sherlock mixed up in it, but it's like I said, it's hard to understand his motives. Is it just because it's like, oh, I admire you as a detective and I want you to get better, so I'm giving you work to work on? Or is it just because it's like, oh, like I want you to come after me? Or, like what his motives are. It's going to be interesting to see kind of those unfold. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where this goes. Like I said, this is like the first of its kind for Sherlock amongst, like I said, the overarching story. So I'm interested to see how this kind of all develops, especially while Sherlock is dealing with his PCS situation. Because it makes that situation even more messed up. It's like, oh yeah, Michael's got this whole thing going off on the side, but it's like he's actually a good friend to Sherlock too, and that's going to make this whole situation awkward. I'm very curious to see what happens the first time him and Joan meet. Obviously, it's never going to be anything big, but I'm still curious for them to kind of meet. Is it going to be a situation of she sees or feels something that's not quite right about him, but because of Sherlock's condition and the fact that this dude's kind of giving him a helping hand, even offering him to do, like he starts looking at it from a different perspective? I don't know. Because obviously these cases are probably going to coincide with some of the episodes. Like obviously he'll be working on one case and then like halfway in some of the episodes, it's like, oh, the other half of it deals, or at least a fraction of the episode might deal with like him, like helping with this missing person case, like this lady Polly. I don't know, it's just fascinating. turn of events. I wasn't expecting that, and he was just saying, it's like, yeah, this is to help you. I'm like, that's so weird. That's an interesting way to end off this episode, you know. So I'm very interested to see like where that all takes us in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.